He kissed her on the forehead, whispered something that made her laugh, and I froze. 'Cause that was my boyfriend. The man I thought I was going to marry. The one who'd slept in my bed the night before. And she wasn't just any girl. She was wearing a diamond ring. She was his fiancée. But I wasn't the fiancé. I was the secret. The lie. The disposable second life he was about to erase. Hey. My name is Jenna Scott, and this isn't just a story about heartbreak. This is a story about betrayal, deception, and the revenge that no one, not even he, saw coming. So before I begin, take a second, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because trust me, what you're about to hear is real. And I want to know how many of you have ever trusted someone who turned out to be a complete stranger hiding behind a smile. Let's rewind. 4 years ago, I met Aidan Calloway. He wasn't the type you fall for right away. He was quiet confidence. Steady. The kind of man who looked at you like he was already listening before you said anything. I met him at a business conference in Seattle. I was there representing the publishing startup I worked for. He was pitching some kind of tech consulting platform. Honestly, I don't even remember the software. I just remember him walking up to me during the break and asking what book I was reading. That was it. No cheesy pickup line. Just a question. And I fell. Started with coffee. Then late night phone calls. Then he started showing up at my place, just to bring dinner. On nights I was too exhausted to cook. I didn't notice at first how slowly he was planting himself in my life. Like a vine that creeps in and wraps itself around everything before you even realize it's choking the walls. Within 6 months, he had a drawer in my apartment. By year 2, half the closet was his. But here's what I missed. He never wanted me to come to his place. He always said it was messy. Or just temporary. He never took pictures with me. Never tagged me. He said he didn't use social media. Too toxic, he'd laugh. And when I asked about his family, they're complicated, he'd say. I'll tell you when you meet them. One day. That one day never came. Because they already had a daughter-in-law in the making. And it wasn't me. 3 years into our relationship, he told me he had to fly to Chicago for a client meeting. It wasn't unusual. Aidan's job in tech meant he was on the road a lot. I kissed him goodbye like always, and he promised to call that night. He didn't. Said he was tired. Said the meeting ran late. I believed him. That same weekend, I decided to clean out the storage unit we shared. We'd talked about moving in together officially, so I thought I'd start early. Organize. Make space. That's when I found a plain cardboard box under an old trunk. Labeled in his handwriting. A personal. And inside that box was the truth. Velvet ring box. A stack of printed honeymoon itineraries to Italy, with dates just 2 months away. And a manila envelope filled with wedding invitation drafts. At first I thought stupidly that it was for me. Like maybe it was a surprise proposal. My heart actually fluttered. Then I saw her name. Danielle Thompson. Fiancé. I sat on the cold floor of that storage unit, my legs shaking, my hands refusing to let go of the evidence. Googled her. Her profile came up instantly. She was smiling, holding Aidan's hand. Tagged in posts like, "Can't wait to marry my best friend." They had been together for 3 years. The same amount of time he'd been with me. I wasn't the side piece. I wasn't the main one either. I was just extra. A duplicate life. A disposable chapter in a story he'd already written for someone else. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I made a plan. Because here's what Aidan didn't know. I wasn't just some heartbroken woman. I was someone who knew how to rise. Who knew how to wait. And when the moment was right, how to ruin him without ever raising my voice. He thought he could live 2 lives and walk away clean. He thought he could propose to one woman while sleeping in another's bed. He thought he was in control. But now, he has no idea what's coming. I'm Jenna Scott. And this is the beginning of the end for him. To be continued. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit you all at once. You'd think it would feel like an explosion. Loud, undeniable, ripping your world apart in seconds. But for me it was more like a leak in the ceiling. Quiet. Creeping. Spreading rot through everything I thought was solid. And I didn't even scream. Not when I saw that engagement photo. Not when I realized the man I planned to marry was already promised to someone else. Just froze. Aiden had always been careful, smooth, controlled. He knew how to cover his tracks. But not this time. A photo tagged by a florist's assistant on Instagram, barely visible in the corner, showed him standing beside a woman in a white dress, under a floral arch, holding a champagne glass. The caption read, "Congrats Danielle and Aiden Ring, what a stunning couple." I stared at that post until the words blurred. I clicked the username. Her page was private. But it didn't matter. That single image destroyed the illusion I had lived in for nearly 2 years. I didn't cry. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at my kitchen table, and opened a blank document on my laptop. I titled it, "Everything." That's where I would start collecting every lie, every clue, every receipt, every promise he'd made. Because I knew what came next wouldn't be emotional. It would be surgical. I didn't text him. I didn't scream. Play dumb. The next morning I sent him a voice note. "Good luck in Chicago this week. Wish I was there with you." He replied within minutes. His voice, as fake and charming as ever, told me how much he missed me, how boring conferences were without me, how he couldn't wait to come home. He called my place home, while he was building a new one with someone else. I wanted to burn everything. But I didn't. Because I wasn't just going to expose him. I was going to dismantle him. The plan began slowly. First I kept him close. Let him believe nothing had changed. He came over that Friday, kissed my forehead, handed me flowers. Told me he brought Chicago-style popcorn as a joke. I laughed, played along. But in my mind, I was already counting down. That night, I watched him sleep beside me. His arm draped over my waist like nothing was wrong. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "Soon." Over the next week, I began collecting evidence. Not just of our relationship, but of his deception. Emails, photos, texts. Every trace that proved we were more than a casual fling. Hotel bookings in my name. Shared travel itineraries. Photos of us at events where he introduced me as his girlfriend. I even recorded phone calls. I downloaded apps that let me quietly capture every time he said things like, "I love you," "I can't imagine my life without you," and "One day I want to marry you." Each clip felt like a dagger to my own chest. But I needed them. Not for closure. For ammunition. Then I started investigating Danielle. Her name was Danielle Thompson. Daughter of Thomas and Evelyn Thompson. Her father was a venture capitalist. Founder of a firm that had poured over $5 million into Aiden's startup 6 months ago. Suddenly it made sense. The trips to San Francisco. The expensive dinners he claimed were with investors. The new car. The push to scale his company so quickly. He wasn't just lying to me. He was trading me in. Danielle wasn't just a fiancée. She was a merger. And I was the test market. One night I followed him. He told me he had a late strategy meeting at his co-founder's place. But I knew better. I waited 20 minutes, then drove. I tailed him to a gated townhouse just outside the city. Parked a few blocks away and watched from my car. An hour later I saw them. Aiden and Danielle. Walking hand in hand out of the building and into a sleek black car. Laughing. Touching. Kissing. My hands shook. But I hit record. The next morning I called in sick to work. And I spent the entire day creating a timeline. Of their relationship. Of ours. Of every overlapping date and lie. Color-coded it. Marked key events. Cross-referenced photos, flight confirmations, receipts. It was meticulous. Because I knew what I was building wasn't just for closure. It was for detonation. Then I made a move. I sent Danielle a message from a dummy email account. No threats. Just one line. "Before you walk down the aisle, ask him who Jenna Scott is." I didn't expect a reply. I didn't need one. But 2 days later, Aiden showed up at my apartment. Livid. Did you contact Danielle? He asked without saying hello. I blinked. Danielle who? Don't F with me, Jenna. Shrugged. I don't know what you're talking about. He stared at me for a long time. Then something shifted. The mask slipped. His tone changed. Don't ruin this for me. That was it. Not, I'm sorry. Not, it's not what you think. Just a warning. And in that moment I realized something. He didn't think I was heartbroken. He thought I was powerless. That would be his biggest mistake. After he left, I contacted a friend of mine who worked in software compliance. I asked him to take a look at Aiden's platform. A week later I had what I needed. Multiple sections of code were plagiarized, lifted from open-source communities without attribution. In tech law that's called copyright violation. And in VC-backed startups that's called fraud. I now had proof that his company, the one Danielle's family had invested millions in, was a ticking time bomb. And I had the receipts to prove it. But I didn't just want to destroy his company. I wanted to destroy his credibility. So I reached out to a journalist, anonymously, and leaked what I'd found. I knew it would take time to publish. But once it did, the consequences would be nuclear. Meanwhile I played nice. Invited Aiden over. Cooked dinner. Acted like the perfect, clueless girlfriend. I asked him about his day, about his plans. He told me how the Thompson deal was changing everything. That he was about to become something big. Smiled. Because I already knew that just beneath his feet, the ground was starting to crack. A few nights later, I stood in front of the mirror and whispered, "Don't cry. Don't break. Just win." I was no longer the girl in love. I was the woman in charge. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming the narrative. Because when someone steals your story, you don't just write a new chapter. You burn the whole book and start over. They say karma takes time. I disagreed. Because in just 7 days, I started watching Aiden's perfect life unravel, thread by thread. I didn't have to touch him. All I had to do was light a few matches. The first spark. The article. I remember the exact moment it dropped. I was sitting in a cafe on 6th and Willow, sipping an iced coffee, pretending to scroll through emails, while my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's live." Clicked the link. The headline burned like gasoline. Tech darling under fire. Source code theft and shady backers exposed. The piece was surgical, precise, backed by evidence, screenshots, and expert interviews. It didn't just expose Aiden's company for plagiarism. It raised serious questions about investor ethics, backroom deals, and conflicts of interest, especially the involvement of the Thompson family. Didn't name me. But it didn't have to. Within hours the tech blogs picked it up. Then Twitter. Then LinkedIn. By sunset, Aiden's world was on fire. He called me that night. "Have you seen it?" His voice was hoarse. Panic. He didn't even say hello. Played dumb. "Seen what?" He let out a bitter laugh. "The article. Don't act like you don't know. You did this." I stayed silent long enough for him to second-guess himself. Then I said slowly, "Why would I do something like that?" He hesitated. "Because you're mad. You're jealous." There it was. The word he always used to dismiss my instincts. Jealous. As if my pain were petty. As if betrayal only mattered when it was public. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just whispered, "You should be careful who you hurt, Aiden. Not everyone stays broken." Then I hung up. That weekend I disappeared. No text, no calls, no post. I went off-grid and stayed at a friend's lake house. While Aiden's life collapsed in real time, I sat by the water, reading novels, making tea, and watching his company's stock drop like a stone. By Monday, he'd lost 2 major investors. By Tuesday, Danielle's father had temporarily stepped down from the board of advisors. By Wednesday, Danielle deleted all traces of their engagement from Instagram. And still, I hadn't said a word. That was the part that drove him crazy. Aiden was used to control, over narratives, over people. And now, the silence was louder than any accusation. But I wasn't done. Because revenge doesn't end with destruction. Real revenge ends with rebirth. I didn't just want to watch Aiden burn. I wanted to rise, right in front of him. That's when I reached out to Olivia Chen. She was a startup strategist I'd met at a tech conference a year ago. Smart, ruthless in the best way. We'd once talked over drinks about launching something together, a platform that prioritized ethical growth and female founders. Back then it had been a dream. Now it was my purpose. "Is this about Aiden?" she asked bluntly when I called her. "No," I said. "It's about me." Within 3 weeks we were building. New name, a new brand, and most importantly, a new story. I didn't hide what had happened. In fact, I used it. I started talking on small podcasts in private Zooms at female founder meetups. I never named him. But I told the truth. I talked about how women in business are gaslit, underestimated, and erased, even by the people closest to them. I talked about how betrayal isn't just personal, it's professional. I talked about building back smarter, louder, and unapologetically. The response was overwhelming. People listened. People shared. People believed me. I wasn't the crazy ex anymore. I was a survivor, a strategist, force. And Aiden. He was a cautionary tale. One night, Olivia and I hosted a private pitch event for female founders. 15 investors showed up. 2 of them had previously backed Aiden. I saw the flicker of recognition when they heard my name, and I made sure my pitch was bulletproof. When it was over, one of them, a tall man in a gray blazer, pulled me aside and said, "You've got something real here. And you've got fire." That night, we secured $2.3 million in seed funding. I didn't cry. Smiled. Then I went home, popped a bottle of champagne, and sent Aiden a screenshot of the investor announcement. No caption. Just the image. 15 minutes later, he replied, "Guess you really did move on." I didn't answer. Because silence is the most elegant revenge of all. Weeks passed. My company grew. My voice grew louder. But one day I got a DM from someone unexpected. "Danielle." It was short. "I know everything now. Sorry. You deserved better." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, "So did you." I didn't hate her. Not anymore. She was a pawn in the same game. A game Aiden had played too many times. But I'd rewritten the rules. By the time the lawsuits hit Aiden, I was already 3 steps ahead. His co-founder flipped. His investors sued. And when the feds got involved over financial misconduct, even Danielle's father cut him off. The last I heard, he'd moved to a smaller city, changed his name, started freelancing in low-tier coding jobs. And me. I spoke on panels. I mentored young women. I was invited to Forbes' Next 100 dinner. I wasn't just back. I was reborn. This wasn't just revenge. It was revolution. And if you're still watching, if you've been hurt, cheated, dismissed, let this be your reminder. You're not too broken. You're not too late. You're not too small. You are the storm they never prepared for. Success doesn't whisper. Echoes. And mine. It echoed in boardrooms, across headlines, inside quiet conversations I was never meant to hear. They said, "That's the girl Aiden Scott burned." But I wasn't the girl anymore. I was Jenna Scott, the founder they didn't see coming. And that scared him. I know it did. Because one afternoon, exactly 5 months after the first article dropped, I walked into a private equity summit and saw him sitting at the back of the room. Same sharp jawline. Same tailored arrogance. But he didn't look the same. The confidence was cracked. Charm stale. He looked tired. Out of place. And worst of all, unsure of himself. He wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't even on the list. But someone had slipped him in. And when he saw me walk across that stage, mic in hand, lights on my face, crowd silent, he knew exactly what was about to happen. I didn't acknowledge him. Not yet. Instead, I gave my keynote. The price of silence. Rebuilding after betrayal. And when I finished, the room erupted in applause. Not for the hurt version of me, but for the one who rose. Aiden didn't clap. He just stared like he was watching a ghost tell her side of the story. And when I stepped off stage, he was waiting. "Jenna," he said softly. Pause. He looked smaller now, standing there in the hallway, away from the crowd. No spotlight, no backup, just him. "I didn't expect to see you here," I said flatly. "I didn't know you were speaking," he lied. I tilted my head. "You knew." He didn't deny it. There was a long silence. Then he said, "You've changed." I smiled tight and slow. "I rebuilt. There's a difference." He ran a hand through his hair. "Can we talk? Just 5 minutes. Please." I should have said no. I should have walked away. But something inside me whispered, "Let him see what strength looks like." Close. So I nodded. 5 minutes. We sat at a bar across the street. It was almost empty, just soft jazz in the background and the clink of a few glasses. He ordered bourbon. I didn't touch mine. He kept looking at me like he couldn't believe I was real. "I saw the news," he said. "The funding. The expansion. You're everywhere." I said nothing. "I never thought you'd," he trailed off. "Survive. Finish." He winced. "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is." His hands tightened around the glass. "I made mistakes, Jenna. I was scared. The deal with Danielle's father. It wasn't supposed to go that far." I leaned in. "Do you want my forgiveness, Aiden? Or do you just want to feel better about yourself?" He didn't answer. "Let me save you the trouble," I said, standing. "You don't get closure. Not from me." And with that I walked out. This time he was the one left behind. The meeting went viral. Someone took a photo of us at the bar. By morning the caption read, "When karma meets her target." But I wasn't chasing karma anymore. I was building legacy. My company, Emberise, had just landed a partnership with a major international firm. We were hiring, scaling, launching new products. We just signed our first office lease in London. And for the first time in 2 years, I slept through the night. But success brings new enemies. A few weeks after the summit, I received an anonymous envelope. No return address. No name. Inside. A USB drive. I hesitated. Had it scanned for malware. Then opened it. What I saw made my stomach drop. Emails, messages, voice memos. All from his private accounts. Proof that he had sabotaged other companies. Proof that Danielle's father had funded more than one illegal buyout. Even a spreadsheet outlining payments to a journalist. The same one who'd written flattering puff pieces about Aiden during our early startup days. And at the end, a folder titled, "Forgotten Files." Jenna Scott. It was his archive. Emails I'd written. Code I'd built. Memos I'd drafted. Claimed. A name. Published under his name. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. Systematic, deliberate theft. And now I had proof. But who sent it? I scanned every file for metadata. Nothing. Encrypted and stripped clean. Whoever had done this wanted me to win. Quietly. From the shadows. And so I did. With Olivia's help, we forwarded the files to the right people. Ethics committees. Legal teams. Few bold journalists. We didn't want a headline. We wanted a reckoning. 3 weeks later, Aiden was hit with an intellectual property lawsuit. Then another. Then a subpoena. By month's end, his assets were frozen. Danielle's family released a statement denying any knowledge of the individual's actions. And Aiden. He went silent. Completely off-grid. People asked me if I was happy. I told them the truth. It wasn't happiness. It was peace. There's a difference. Because revenge doesn't erase the pain. Just ends the silence. But what mattered most wasn't that Aiden fell. It was that I stood, without hiding, without shame, without needing him to see it. Because this story, it wasn't about him anymore. It was mine. And I was ready to write the final chapter. You know what they don't tell you about winning? That it can be just as lonely as losing. After Aiden vanished and the lawsuits hit, the silence felt wrong. Not peaceful. Not satisfying. Just wrong. It's not that I missed him. It's that part of me still carried the shape of what he broke. I spent nights in my glass-walled office, staring out over the city. Emberise was thriving. Glowing articles, investor parties, private meetings with venture firms that used to ignore me. But sometimes I'd look around at the people in those rooms and wonder, did they like me? Or did they just love a story that made them feel better about their own failures? Either way, I kept moving forward, because slowing down meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering, and remembering. It hurt. One night around 2 a.m. Olivia knocked on my office door. She was barefoot in a hoodie, holding 2 mugs of black coffee. "Still here?" she asked. He nodded. "Finalizing contracts for the Dubai team." She handed me a mug. "Or avoiding sleep?" I looked up at her. Tired eyes, honest voice. Olivia had never changed. Even when money came in and cameras followed me, she stayed real. "Steady." "Both," I admitted. She sat down on the couch. "You don't have to pretend with me." "I'm not pretending." "Yes, you are. You're pretending this win fixed everything." "Didn't. It just gave you a new kind of control." I looked down at the steam rising from the mug. She wasn't wrong. "Why do I still feel like I lost something?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "Because you did," she said. "You lost who you were with him. And maybe you're scared you won't like who you're becoming now." I didn't respond. She let the silence sit. Then she said, "Jenna, you don't need to prove anything anymore. Not to him. Not to the world. You've already won." But that's the thing. I didn't feel like I had. Not really. A few weeks later, I got a call from a woman named Marlene Dawson. High-powered. Wall Street royalty. CEO of a billion-dollar hedge fund. "I want to meet," she said. "I've been watching you." Sounded like a threat. But it was a compliment. We met at a private restaurant in Midtown Manhattan. She wore navy. Diamond earrings. "It's like ice." "You have power now," she said, sipping wine. "But if you want legacy, you'll need protection. Real protection." "From who?" I asked. She smiled. "Men like Aiden. And women worse than Danielle." I stared at her, unsure what game we were playing. Then she leaned in. "I know who sent you the USB." My pulse kicked. "Who?" She slid a folder across the table. Heavy. "Read it." "But not here." Then she stood. "You're not just building a company, Jenna. You're entering a war. And whether you like it or not, you're a target now." I didn't open the folder until midnight. Inside, surveillance photos, emails, bank transfers, and a name. Miranda Wolf. A former associate of Aiden. Quiet. Dark. She had worked behind the scenes for years, building his image, spinning press, covering mistakes. Until he burned her too. She'd lost everything, her name, her clients, her income. And then she vanished. Till now. She was the one who sent me the USB. I sat there stunned. A stranger had become my secret weapon. And she didn't ask for credit. But why? I had to find her. Tracking her wasn't easy. She had no active socials. No digital footprint. Her last known location was an address in Santa Fe, New Mexico, 2 years ago. But Olivia knew someone. Private investigator. 3 days later we had a lead. She was in Portland, working in a bookstore, using a different name. I flew out the next morning. The bookstore was tucked between 2 coffee shops. Quiet. Local. Smelled like dust and pine. I found her near the back, stacking hardcover classics. "Miranda Wolf," said. He turned startled. Then a recognition. She didn't speak. "It's me. Jenna Scott." She dropped the book in her hand. We stood in silence. "I know what you did," I said. "And I don't know how to thank you." She finally spoke. You don't need to. But why? She sighed. Because he ruined me too. And I couldn't fight back. But you could. We sat down. She told me everything. How she had curated Aiden's public image. How he used people like tools. How Danielle was just the surface. The real corruption ran deeper. He made enemies in every room, she said. You weren't the only one he broke. Just the only one who survived. I stared at her. I want to finish what we started. I want to expose everything. She looked down. It won't be easy. I know. You'll make more enemies. I already have. She smiled. Then let's do it right this time. Miranda became my shadow. Behind the scenes, she helped me build a case. A dossier of everything Aiden ever touched. Every manipulation, every theft, every lie. It was meticulous, dangerous, and completely undeniable. We handed it to a journalist named Claire Reese. Someone we trusted. Someone fearless. The article dropped a month later. The Golden Fraud, Aiden Scott and the Empire of Lies. Trended within minutes. And this time no one could save him. Securities fraud. Identity theft. Corporate espionage. Whistleblowers came forward. Clients abandoned him. Former partners released statements distancing themselves. And then came the FBI. He was arrested trying to board a private flight out of the country. The photo went viral. Aiden Scott, in handcuffs. No suit. No smugness. Just defeat. I didn't celebrate. I just stood on my apartment balcony that night, staring at the skyline, letting the wind wrap around me. It was over. The fight. The anger. The noise. Done it. But the strangest part. I didn't feel triumphant. Felt free. Not because he lost, but because I finally stopped needing to win. They say revenge is sweet. But no one talks about the silence that follows it. The headlines were everywhere. Aiden Scott. From tech star to criminal mastermind. The woman who took down her billionaire ex. Jenna Scott's cold, calculated comeback. I read them all. And I felt nothing. Not the rush people expect. Not pride. Not even anger. Just an emptiness I couldn't explain. I didn't want champagne. I didn't want to be interviewed. I wanted quiet. I wanted space. I wanted to feel like a person again. Not a symbol. Because once you become a symbol, people stop seeing you as real. That week I took off for the coast. No team. No assistants. No Olivia. Just me. I rented a small cottage by the cliffs in Big Sur. The kind of place with fog at sunrise and birdsong that cuts through your thoughts. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not even Miranda. I needed to breathe without the weight of anyone's expectations. For 3 days I did nothing. Just sat on the porch. Read. Watched waves crash. But even in silence my thoughts weren't quiet. I kept replaying the last few months. The lies, the betrayals, the fire I lit just to burn it all down. Had I become the very thing I hated? That question haunted me. On the 4th day I got a knock at the door. It was Olivia. I knew you'd come here, she said, stepping inside like she belonged. I didn't ask how she found me. She set a bag of groceries on the table. You've been avoiding people again, she said. I needed space. I know. But you also need something else. What's that? She looked at me hard. A reason to move forward that isn't about him. I stared at her. You didn't build Ember Eyes to prove anything to Aiden, she said. You did it because you believed in it. In yourself. So why let him still define you now that he's gone? I didn't know what to say. I'm not trying to lecture you, she added, softer now. But you're not the same woman I met 5 years ago. And that's okay. Just don't let revenge be your whole story. She left the bag and hugged me tight before heading back out into the fog. I stood there for a long time after the door closed. 'Cause she was right. I had let the fire guide me for so long that I forgot what it felt like to simply create. That night I opened a journal. First time in years. I wrote 5 words. Who is Jenna Scott now? And then I stared at the page. I didn't have the answer. but I knew where to start looking. When I returned to the city, the world had moved on, but my name hadn't faded. There were documentaries in development, podcasts asking for interviews, book agents, film studios. A Netflix producer even offered to option my life story. I said no to all of them, not because I was ashamed, but because that story wasn't finished yet. I started spending more time at Emberise again, not just in boardrooms but on the floor with a team. I wanted to rebuild the soul of what we had started. I hosted design meetings, mentored young engineers, reconnected with early users of our platform, real people with real ideas. And something strange happened. I started to feel inspired again, not by power, but by purpose. Then, the twist I never saw coming. One morning Miranda called me, her voice sharp. "We need to meet. In person." When I arrived at her apartment, she handed me a thick envelope. Inside were documents, legal, corporate, shocking. Turns out, Aiden had a second company. A shadow startup registered under a fake name. A clone of Emberise, launched with stolen code. And now, someone was trying to resurrect it. "I thought everything was shut down," I said, flipping through the pages. "So did I," Miranda said. "But whoever's behind this is smart. They've hidden their tracks. But they're pushing for launch soon. What do they want? To take everything you built. Again." I felt the old heat rise in my chest. "But this time," Miranda said, "it's not just Aiden." She slid another paper across the table. List of names, investors, advisors, partners. And right there, at the top, was a name I never expected. Danielle Rivers, Aiden's former partner. The one who helped him betray me in the beginning. She wasn't in hiding. She was plotting a comeback. Using my stolen legacy to do it. And worse, one of my own current employees, someone inside Emberise, was feeding her information. My hands tightened around the paper. So this was it. The final chapter. Not just revenge, but justice. And this time, I wouldn't play defense. I would own the battlefield. I always thought the worst betrayal came from lovers. But I was wrong. The worst betrayal comes from those who see you every day, who eat lunch beside you, smile in the hallways, and still plan your downfall behind your back. And that's exactly what I was staring at. A spreadsheet of internal logins, a trail of unauthorized file downloads, email activity flagged by Olivia's digital sweep. And the name it all pointed to, Emily Tran, my head of operations, my mentee. The woman who used to cry in my office over stress and burnout. The one I fought to give a raise to. The one who used to call me her role model. She was the mole. She had been feeding Danielle Rivers, Aiden's former partner, everything from Emberise's internal strategy docs to early code commits from our R&D team. This wasn't just sabotage. This was theft. I stared at her photo on my screen for a long time. Something hollow opened up in my chest. There was no rage this time. No fire. Just a kind of numbness. She had been working with us for almost 3 years. 3 years of earned trust gone. "Do we confront her?" Olivia asked. I shook my head. "Not yet. We have enough to press charges." "I know. But if we do it now, we lose our leverage." "What do you mean?" I leaned back in my chair and turned toward the window. The city glittered below us like scattered glass. I could see the Emberise logo on the building across the street. Strong, clean, modern. "She thinks she's ahead of me," I said. "Let's make her believe that a little longer." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "What are you planning?" I turned and gave her the coldest smile I've ever worn. "A trap." That night I hosted an unscheduled strategy meeting. I made sure Emily was there. We staged a pitch, a new direction we were supposedly launching. I let her see it all. The fake roadmaps, the decoy product specs, the mock-ups we rushed to prepare. It was theater. Beautiful, believable theater. And she bought it. I watched her eyes as she took notes. The way her fingers trembled slightly when I accidentally left a folder labeled Top Secret Beta open on the screen. She was trying to act normal. But she wasn't just nervous. She was guilty. I ended the meeting early and walked out without saying a word. She didn't know that Olivia was tracking every move she made afterward, every file she opened, every device she synced. And 2 hours later the trap closed. She uploaded the fake beta specs to a private Google Drive account linked to an alias. Rivers Global Dev. Game over. We waited one more day. Just long enough for Danielle to think she had won. And then I did something I never thought I'd do again. I sent her a personal invitation. Real one. To an exclusive private summit for women in tech. The cover. Emberise was forming a coalition for female entrepreneurs and early-stage founders, and I wanted Danielle to be part of it. It was bold, risky, but if she showed up, it would be poetic. Miranda thought I was insane. She knows you know, she said. She'll never walk into your space. That's the point, I said. She won't think I'm crazy enough to go public. And she'll assume I'm using this event to save face, not set her up. Miranda still looked skeptical, but Olivia grinned. You know, she said, there's something almost beautiful about turning a betrayal into an invitation. The summit was set for Saturday. A rooftop venue downtown. Clean, modern, glass-walled with a skyline view. We invited 50 women. Entrepreneurs, investors, activists, real leaders. And Danielle. RSVP'd within 3 hours. Confirmed. Looking forward to it. That's all her email said. But I could almost hear her smirk between the lines. She thought I was trying to make peace. She thought she had won. The night before the event, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every version of the confrontation in my head. The moment she'd arrive. The second our eyes would meet. How I'd keep my face calm while fire swirled inside me. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. I was afraid of what she'd turned me into. A woman who once wanted to build. Now designing a downfall. But I knew something else too. Sometimes to heal you have to burn the infection out. And Danielle. She had poisoned everything I'd ever tried to grow. It was time. The event opened with drinks and light music. Everyone was dressed in soft pastels. Male. Networking. Laughter. Perfect. Danielle walked in wearing a black pantsuit. The only one not smiling. I approached her directly. Collected. Danielle, I said, offering a hand. So glad you made it. She took it. Wouldn't miss it. Quite the rebrand. Smiled. Everyone deserves a second chance, don't they? She raised an eyebrow. Even people like me. I tilted my head. Especially people like you. She laughed. And I knew she was trying to guess what game I was playing. But she couldn't see the board. Not yet. At 8 p.m. sharp I took the mic. Thank you all for coming, I began. Tonight isn't about competition. It's about clarity. We've all been told that power means stepping on each other. I used to believe that too. I looked directly at Danielle. But what if power meant something else? What if justice didn't require courtrooms? I turned to Olivia, who nodded and handed out small folders to each attendee. Inside, dossier of Danielle's shell company, her theft, her links to the stolen code, screenshots, emails, P-logs, everything. The crowd flipped through the pages, confused at first, then gasped, then whispers. Danielle went white. What is this? She asked, standing up. The truth, I said. Do you think this will scare me? No, I said, walking toward her slowly. This will expose you. Click the remote. Behind me a screen lit up. Security footage. Emily copying files. Timestamps. Even voice memos. And finally, Danielle's voice from a call Olivia had intercepted. She's so predictable. I almost feel bad taking her down twice. The audience stared in stunned silence. Danielle froze. You recorded me. You recorded yourself, I said. And with that, 2 legal officers from our corporate security stepped forward. Danielle turned to run. But there was nowhere to go. As they escorted her out, I turned back to the women in the room. You don't need to destroy to win, I said. But sometimes you have to protect what you've built. And I left it at that. Later that night I stood alone on the rooftop. The city spread out before me. Alive. Burning. Beautiful. Olivia joined me. You good? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I don't know what happens next, I said. For the first time, there's no one left to fight. Then maybe it's time to build again. I nodded slowly. 'Cause maybe, just maybe, she was right. You'd think exposing Danielle would have brought peace. But peace doesn't come in the form of applause or whispered congratulations. Not when the war is still going on inside you. I stood at the edge of Emberi's rooftop 2 nights after the summit, watching the city pulse like a living thing beneath my feet. I should have felt victorious. Instead I felt unfinished. Because even though Danielle was outed, arrested, and publicly disgraced, Aiden still hadn't answered for what he did to me. Worse, I hadn't seen him in almost 5 months. The man who stole my company, my code, my trust. The man who made me believe in love and then turned it into a weapon. He disappeared. Like a coward. No press conferences. No leaked emails. Just silence. And I couldn't move on until I heard his voice again. Until I looked into his eyes and saw whether he had ever felt an ounce of guilt. But that's not what kept me awake. It was the one question that still made my skin crawl every time I thought of it. Why did he really do it? Danielle. I understood her motives. Power, greed, envy. But Aiden. He had already made millions. He had clout, reputation, charm. He didn't need to destroy me. Unless it had never been about business. Unless it had always been personal. I didn't expect the call that came the next morning. It was from an unknown number. Block. But something in my gut told me to pick it up. I said nothing. Just listened. At first, all I could hear was breathing. Then a voice I hadn't heard in half a year. Jenna. Froze. Aiden. You won. His voice was strained. Slower than I remembered. Like something inside him had cracked. Don't flatter me. You disappeared. I had to. Why? To avoid the consequences. To hide behind Danielle. No, he said. To protect you. I laughed. Bitter, sharp, involuntary. You think destroying my company, stealing my tech, humiliating me, was protection? I didn't know what she planned to do. I thought I could stop her. But I was already in too deep. What are you talking about? Asked my voice hardening. I didn't betray you the way you think I did, he said. There's something you don't know. About Emberize. About you. What are you saying? I need to show you something. Face to face. You're out of your mind. I'll send you the address. One time. You don't show, I disappear for good. And just like that he hung up. Miranda and Olivia begged me not to go. It's a trap, Miranda said. He's just trying to manipulate you again. He wants control, Olivia added. Don't give him the satisfaction. But I had to know. If there was something I missed, some thread that unraveled the whole tapestry, I had to pull it. Because if I didn't, I'd never stop wondering. So I went. He chose a secluded cottage 2 hours north of the city. Gated, wooded, with a long driveway hidden by trees. The kind of place people use when they want to vanish. When I arrived, the door was already open. I walked in slowly, my heels clicking softly against the wood floor. He was sitting at the kitchen table. And he looked like a ghost. His face was thinner. Stubble shadowed his jaw. His eyes were sunken like he hadn't slept in days, maybe weeks. He stood when he saw me. Jenna. I'm not here for apologies, I said. Good, he replied. I'm not offering any. That made my jaw tighten. But I stayed. Then what is this? Asked. Why bring me here? He slid a file folder across the table. Inside were photographs, documents, emails, names I didn't recognize, company logos I'd never seen. I thought Danielle wanted to destroy you because she hated you, he said. But it's bigger than that. What do you mean? She never cared about Emberize. Not really. She was working with someone else. Who? A company based overseas. Fronted as a VC fund. But it's not. They specialize in taking over small tech startups, then bleeding them dry for proprietary systems. You were their target. Why me? Because your code, your real-time biometric mapping engine, was worth hundreds of millions. Blink. How did they know about it? He didn't answer. Then it hit me. You told them. I didn't know what they were going to do, he said. I thought I was helping you pitch to investors. Danielle made it sound like a partnership. She said you'd thank me. You believed her. He swallowed. I loved her. Before I met you. My blood turned cold. You were with her before me. He nodded. We were together. And when she introduced me to you, it was a test. She wanted to see if you'd trust me. If I could gain access. I backed away from the table, nausea creeping up my throat. So I was an assignment. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, he said. I fell in love with you. Don't, I said, voice sharp. It's the truth. I stared at him. You manipulated me. You helped them take everything. And now you want redemption. I want you to take them down. He slid me a flash drive. This has everything. The real contracts. The wire transfers. Danielle was just the middle link. The real monsters are still out there. Why should I believe you? Because if you don't, he looked at me, eyes hollow, they'll do it to someone else. I left without another word. But I took the flash drive. Because part of me still didn't trust him. But another part. That part wanted to finish this war once and for all. And now I knew who the real enemy was. Not Danielle. Not Aiden. But the ones who paid for my betrayal. Back in the city, I gave the drive to Olivia. She and our cybersecurity team combed through it for 2 days straight. Verified every name, every transaction. It was real. There was a shell firm in Singapore. A holding company in Luxembourg. And beneath it all, a single name kept appearing. Delos Stratagem Group. A private network of investors that had quietly absorbed 14 startups in 3 years. All female-led, all under 40. And now, they were eyeing their next one. Only this time they didn't realize the target was coming for them. They say betrayal cracks you in places that never fully heal. That it changes your voice, your laugh, your reflection. That you'll never be the same again. They're right. But what they don't tell you is that the cracks, the broken pieces, you can shape them into armor. You can sharpen them into blades. And if you survive the burn, they don't get the old version of you back. They get someone they can't predict. They get someone who doesn't forget. And I never forgot what Aiden did to me. He didn't just cheat. He didn't just lie. He stole my company. Name. My legacy. He gutted my future and handed it to someone else. Danielle, wrapped in champagne and smug smiles. As if I had been nothing but a stepping stone. Prototype. A soft-hearted fool easily erased. But I wasn't erased. I was waiting. And now this story, the one they tried to bury, is finally coming to its end. Started at rock bottom. The night I found out Aiden and Danielle weren't just business partners behind my back. They were lovers. Co-conspirators. Thieves. I had nothing left after that night but a few loyal friends, a bruised reputation, and the kind of rage that hums in your chest when you've cried too long to keep weeping. So I disappeared, but not to hide. I disappeared to rebuild. Emberize, the company I started with my blood and soul, was gone. But I was still breathing. That meant I could start again. And I did. I poured everything into Emberizing. My second venture, one I built in silence, in secret, while pretending to be defeated. Played the long game. Because revenge isn't loud. Strategic. Slow, methodical, precise. Like fire, quiet before it consumes everything. And just as I predicted, Aiden and Danielle couldn't help themselves. When Emberizing began gaining attention in investor circles, under a different name with a different face, they sniffed it out like sharks sensing blood in the water. Delos Group, their shell of a conglomerate, offered to buy into it. Course they did. They thought it was an easy score. Another woman to exploit. Another name to erase. But the contract they signed, it wasn't a win. It was a trap. I had embedded trackers. My legal team documented every interaction, every fraudulent claim, every illegal transfer of investor money to personal accounts. I wasn't just collecting data. I was building the case that would end them. And I waited for the perfect moment to release it. That moment came at the Delos Investor Summit in Geneva. The kind of event where power dresses in diamonds and whispers in millions. Where founders fawn over venture capitalists and scandal is buried under NDAs. But I wasn't there to whisper. I was there to expose. I remember standing backstage before the main presentation. My palms were sweating. My heart thudding. For a moment I thought I might throw up. But then I saw their faces. Danielle in a designer gown, smiling like the queen of the night. Aiden beside her, nodding at investors, the picture of charm. They were so sure they'd never be caught. They had no idea the knife was already at their throats. I took the stage. Hijacked the keynote. The moment my voice echoed across the room, people turned. Greens flickered. Messages flashed. Transactions. Emails. Audio recordings. Danielle's laugh as she mocked me. Aiden's voice discussing how to dismantle female-led startups from the inside. Investors gasped. Phones lit up. Reporters started recording. And in less than 10 minutes, Delos wasn't just exposed. It was collapsing in real time. I didn't speak much. I didn't need to. The evidence screamed louder than I ever could. Danielle's champagne glass slipped from her hand. Aiden stood frozen like a man waking from a dream into a nightmare. Security escorted them out within the hour. But it didn't end there. In the following weeks, the Securities and Exchange Commission filed multiple charges. Delos Group's assets were frozen. Aiden fled and was caught in Dubai with forged documents. Danielle tried to shift the blame, but the files were airtight. She went down too. Their empires. Their freedom. Compromised. And me. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate in tabloids or leak my story to some flashy podcast. I went home, poured a glass of wine, and looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't the girl who cried in the stairwell of her own office anymore. I wasn't the woman begging for answers from the man she loved. I was something harder now. Something clearer. I had rebuilt not just a company but an identity. Ember Rising now stood stronger than Ember Rise ever had. Backed by real investors. Led by a team I trusted. Designed to protect women-led ventures from the exact kind of theft I had survived. I'd turned my pain into a shield. And I wasn't alone. In the weeks after the summit, I received hundreds of messages from women around the world. Founders, creatives, leaders, survivors, all saying the same thing. This happened to me too. I didn't know how to fight back. Thank you for not staying silent. Hit me like a second wave. This wasn't just about me and Aiden anymore. This was about every woman who's ever been told she's too emotional, too naive, too trusting to lead. Every woman whose ideas were stolen in meeting rooms, whose names were erased from patents, whose success was handed to men who hadn't earned it. My story might have ended with justice, but theirs were still waiting to be told. And I knew then I wasn't done. Ember Rising became more than a company that week. It became a movement. We launched a fund dedicated to backing betrayed female founders. We created a platform for women to share their stories anonymously, safely. Legal aid, tech protection, workshops. Danielle once said I was too soft to survive in the real world. But I'd rather be soft and ethical than hard and criminal. Because here's what no one tells you. Being underestimated is the greatest weapon you'll ever have. Gives you time to plan, to move in silence, to strike when it matters most. Now, when I walk into rooms, they don't see a broken woman. They see a founder who couldn't be buried. A woman who turned betrayal into blueprint. Who built a company stronger than the one that was stolen. And made sure those who tried to erase her would never be able to touch another woman again. So if you're still here, If you've watched this whole journey, if you've ever been betrayed, discarded, or doubted, let this be your sign. You are not weak. You are not done. You are not crazy for trusting. You are just getting started. And when you rise, rise like fire, quiet, controlled, unstoppable. Thank you for walking with me through this. If this story meant something to you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss the next one. And most importantly, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to see how far our fire is spreading. This isn't just my story. It's yours too. And we're only beginning.